Today on the show, it's our retro review of Ghostbusters. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is one of my favorite movies growing up. And the reason we're talking about it today is because this summer marks the 30-year anniversary of this amazing movie. In fact, it'll be released August 29th for a week in theaters. So if you've never seen it in the theater, which I haven't, I'm planning on going to go see it. You should too. And as always, if you have lived under a rock and have not seen Ghostbusters, A, what's wrong with you? B, don't watch this because it's filled with spoilers. You should go watch the movie, come back, and then watch this.
Bustin' make me feel good.
That's a questionable line.
Saving the day, saving the day. When you get to the point where it's right, you can say.
We give you a little bit of history about me and Ghostbusters. We've had a long relationship. I was obsessed with Ghostbusters when I was a kid. Anything with monsters in it, anything at all, I was there. And this was just perfect for me as a kid. I wanted to be a Ghostbuster. I subscribed to the Ghostbuster magazine. I had a poster of Slimer on my wall. I was bit by the ghost-busting bug, that's for sure. They got me. Loved it. And it's like I was just so in love with both Egon and Venkman. I would take either one when I would think about it. Today's retro review of Ghostbusters is brought to you by Audible.com. I know last time we talked about Audible, I was telling you about the First Law series and that I was listening to The Blade itself. And I'm happy to report that I had such a good time listening to the first book that I downloaded the second one. That's right. I'm listening to Before They Are Hanged right now. I just love the characters so much that I didn't want to let them go and I wanted to continue to hang out with them. And this series is a fantasy book series. You got wizard characters, you got barbarian characters, you got all sorts of people all over. The First Law series is a fantasy series, so I recommended this earlier if you're looking for something kind of Game of Thrones-esque and you want something else to kind of tide you over until Game of Thrones comes back. I highly recommend this one, especially if you're into character-driven books, because really, I mean, that's why I got the second book. The character of Sandan Glokta is like one of the best characters I've read in a really long time. Like, I love his character. He's such an unlikely hero because he's like an inquisitor, like from like the King's Inquisition, which is not good. What he does is torture people for a living to get confessions out of them, you know, about whatever he wants them to say, because you're torturing someone, so they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. But anyways, and there's tons of other great characters in the book. You got Pharaoh Malgin, Nine Fingers Baez, take your pick. They're all amazing. I highly recommend it. So if you're interested in getting into the wild world of audiobooks, I highly recommend going to audible.com/comicbookgirl to get your free audiobook. And also, right now they have an extra free book that you can get. If you're interested in the whole fantasy situation, they have a Dungeons & Dragons anthology by R.A. Salvatore that is also being offered with your free book. So you can get 2 free books from now until August 18th when you go to audible.com/wizards after you go to audible.com/comicbookgirl. So the whole movie starts off with first meeting Peter Venkman, one of the original trio founding members of the Ghostbusters, and it really sets the tone for his character, like, immediately. This scene is really interesting because what Venkman is trying to do is see if negative reinforcement can help people's psychic abilities come out. And he's doing a great job of negatively reinforcing this guy, and his methods are actually working. He ends up getting a card right, but Venkman is such a charlatan, you know, that he's distracted by the pretty girl and doesn't even care that his experiment is working, because he's not there to learn anything. He's there to just get by on the grants and fundings from the college and talk to pretty young college girls. And this scene also sets the stage for the kind of world that these paranormal investigators are living in. Right now they're being coddled within the university. They have a grant and funding and they don't actually have to do anything. They just kind of have these weird experiments going on between them. Part of the reason why Ghostbusters works so well is that it immediately portrays this world and builds its own reality that you believe in such a just pitch perfect way. I mean, the original idea for Ghostbusters came about as like, well, what if you had these like blue collar, like exterminator, fireman type dude, but they just dealt with the supernatural? And that's something that I always have really loved, is the idea of mixing, you know, the super out there crazy shit with the mundane, you know, like, and they balance so well in this movie between those two ideas, because you have these guys, they're paranormal investigators, they're trying to start a business, and they even show them having to like deal with realtors and going to banks and like and dealing with the EPA and all this shit that they have to do, which balances out all the crazy spectral insanity going on. Another thing that's great about this movie is its replay value. You can play this anytime. You can be cleaning your house, drawing something, just kicking around, whatever. It's a really great background movie. And these three characters each represent something. You have Egon, who is the brains. You have Ray, who's the heart of the group, and Peter Venkman, who's the mouth, obviously. And I feel like everybody did a great job in this, for sure. I just love all these characters. By the way, this scene right here, that bookshelf was not supposed to fall. It just fell, and they just went with it, ad-libbed these entire lines. In fact, like, a lot of it is improvised, so we'll talk more about some improvisations later, but that's just a testament to how funny these guys are.
Now stay close. Stay close. I know. Do exactly as I say. Get ready. Ready? Get her!
I remember when I was a kid, I got such a good scare out of this scene right here. And apparently when they did a test screening, a lot of the other people in the audience were also scared, and that they were delighted because they were really worried whether it was going to work with the scary and the funny at the same time, because that's kind of a hard deal, but they totally pull it off. Fun fact, the original design for this creature right here was a lot scarier, and apparently it was so scary that they were like, dude, you gotta pull that back. So Steve Johnson did, but he ended up bringing the original puppet over on Fright Night and used it there. It is the vampire bat, so that's really exciting. I never knew that when I was doing research for this shoot. I was like, holy shit, something from Ghostbusters is in Fright Night, one of my other favorite films of like all time. Like, that's so nuts.
Of course. Bangs, you serious about this catching your goal?
I'm always serious.
A lot of people don't realize, but the writers of Ghostbusters are on screen right now. It was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. And apparently, before they decided on doing Ghostbusters, they were actually working on doing a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie starring Dan Aykroyd, which would be super weird to think about and kind of awesome in a way. But Dan gave him his treatment, and they decided to do that instead.
We believe that the purpose of science is to serve mankind. You, however, seem to regard science as some kind of dodge or hustle. Your theories are the worst kind of popular tripe, your methods are sloppy, and your conclusions are highly questionable. You are a poor scientist, Dr. Venkman.
One of the original scripts for Ghostbusters was far more elaborate. It had Gozer showing up as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man 20 minutes into the film, and him being just one of many giant creatures that they have to battle. It was also set in the future. There would have been some flying car action. But they decided that that would take probably $300 million to make, and they were not willing to spend that much money on this. So they decided to scale it back a whole bunch and just have the one monster and have it start with the humble beginnings of the Ghostbusters instead of throwing you into them already having their franchise going and all the stuff popping.
For whatever reasons, Ray, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that we were destined to get thrown out of this dump. For what purpose? To go into business for ourselves.
Another thing that this movie captures so well is the essence of starting your own business and how it's super crazy and you gotta do all this bullshit and you gotta oversee all these things going on, and how you don't really know what you're doing, you know, but you have to tell people that you know what you're doing and be like, oh yeah, I know. It's like they don't even have a customer. They've invested everything. They've mortgaged Ray's house like 3 times or something. And, you know, all of this could come crashing down and they could all be out on the street. Who knows, you know? But they're doing it anyways. And I think that's just a really fun, relatable thing, owning a small business myself, starting a show and doing all these things. And not only are the Ghostbusters great characters, they have tons of amazing supporting characters as well. Rick Moranis as Lewis is fantastic. Sigourney Weaver, as always, is a delight, and she just plays it perfectly in this movie. And even, I love their secretary, Janine Melnitz. I just think she's, like, the cutest thing ever. And he's so cute. Look how little he is compared to her. He's such a good little creeper, like always waiting by his door for her to go by, and she's always trying to sneak by without talking to this little weirdo, you know, always hitting on her. Originally, John Candy was supposed to play the character of Lewis, but he ended up walking. And I'm kind of glad that he did, because I think that Rick Moranis just really does a perfect job.
Pick up your phone and call the professionals. Go,
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Our courteous and efficient staff is on call 24 hours a day to serve all your supernatural elimination needs.
So apparently this commercial right here that is in the movie was also used to promote the movie before it came out. They would run this on television with an 800 number that you could call, and that would have like a pre-recorded message from Venkman and Ray saying that they're busy out busting ghosts right now and they can't take your call. And apparently they had like 1,000 people calling every hour, 24 hours a day for like 6 weeks or something like that. They had a lot of really fun promotions for this movie. Another thing that they did before the movie came out was they had Ecto-1, you know, driving around Manhattan and things like that in real life, which is a lot of fun. I love it when movies do like weird little things like that to promote themselves. Another practical effect was these eggs cooking on this stone. They had to figure out how to make a countertop get really hot and look like a countertop, but also be able to cook eggs. And they did. A lot of people don't notice that by the eggs, there are a pack of Stay Puft marshmallows right there. There's also an ad for them, like on the side of a building, like painted on there too. So Stay Puft marshmallows do make an appearance before you see the Marshmallow Man later on. So,
Can I help you?
I don't have an appointment. I'd like to talk to someone.
this is one of my favorite scenes where you have Dana Barrett, their very first client, showing up. She's talking to Janine, and Bill Murray pops up, almost trips over the railing, makes it over. But it's so cute how he hears a woman's voice and immediately is like, "How may I help you?" Fun fact, the actors originally set to play the Ghostbusters were John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Eddie Murphy. But Eddie Murphy ended up passing and going on to do Beverly Hills Cop, which was actually a really good idea because that movie was the only movie that surpassed Ghostbusters in the box office. And also, unfortunately, John Belushi died before they could do this, so that's why he is not in the film, but he is in spirit. They based the character of Slimer around the idea of the ghost of John Belushi and what he would be up to in the afterlife. So this movie is Bill Murray at his Bill Murrayest, and I think this scene with him with the little sniffer while he's at Dana Barrett's apartment is one of my favorite scenes of him in the movie. He cracks me up with this thing. I love when she's like, "Are you using that thing correctly?" And he stops and he has to think about it for a second. And he's like, "Maybe, I don't know." Like, he's such a shitty scientist that he doesn't even know what he's doing. Like, he just has some weird machine, you know. And apparently Bill Murray went to the prop people before this scene and he got to pick out like which weird piece of equipment they had. So that's the one that he chose. He chose the sniffer. Apparently it's an actual thing in real life that sniffs out gases that are bad that you don't want in your apartment, I guess. But apparently they did do research on paranormal investigation and what kind of instruments these people might be using, and they thought that maybe the sniffer would be good because it's like sensing atmospheric differences and if there's like a different chemical in the air, like the ozone from a ghost or something. I don't know. They tried, and I appreciate that. Not only does this movie have really great characters, but the set pieces are also fantastic. I love their firehouse. This is just like the best set ever. I love that New York is a character. They do a really great job of showing off the city and its personality. And the rooftop occult 1920s Art Deco pagan altar is probably one of the coolest things ever created. Like, I want to live in that building like so bad. And in this scene, they finally get their first call. They get their first big customer, and they're so excited. And it's so great as an audience member because you've seen them, and they're talking about how they just spent the last of their money on this food that they're eating, and they don't know when they're going to be able to eat again. And they finally get their first client. It's so exciting. Going to make some money. The Ecto-1 making its grand appearance. I love that Janine's like, oh yeah, they'll be totally discreet. And then they got this fucking thing pulling up that's like, meow, meow. Like, that's so not discreet in any way, shape, or form. Another thing that's great about this movie is all of the quotable quotes going on when they get in the elevator and they're getting ready to use their proton packs for the first time. You know, I love Venkman says, why worry? Each of us is wearing an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on his back. And then they turn it on, and that sound design is perfect.
Switch me on.
And they just slowly inch away from him because it just sounds like it's gonna explode or something. I love how iconic the sound design is for the proton pack, which, fun fact, the word proton pack doesn't even ever come up until Ghostbusters 2, about halfway through the film. One of my favorite little details is just a small little nuance of acting in the puppeteering, but right here where you have them in the ballroom looking for Slimer, there he is. They spot him. He spots them, and he's like, and like they scared Slimer. It's like they snuck up on a ghost and scared a ghost, which is like so funny. It's perfect. It's just so good. Such a good little touch. Another thing I admire about this movie is how all the effects like have their own personality to them. Like they all look like Ghostbusters effects. And I feel like now when you go to the movies, since everything is done on a computer, everything kind of tends to look the same. The whole movie just has this really great aesthetic. I mean, even the quality of the film stock. I even love the quality of the film stock. This movie gets the art of the montage just right. Montages can be really lame and like feel just very lazy, I guess, but it doesn't feel like that at all in this. It's really setting up that like these guys, their business is taking off, and then you have all these different people who are like, some say that they're, you know, saviors and heroes, and other people say that they're full of shit and that they're charlatans and they're just like preying upon stupid people. And you even have Larry King coming in, weighing in on it. This is actually his first film appearance. The way they show their business taking off through having you know, radio personality and TV personalities talking about it, showing all these magazine covers, and then having Dana Barrett's character hearing and seeing all these commercials and interviews with them. It's just really, really good.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
And here we have Winston Zeddemore becoming a part of the Ghostbusters team. As I said earlier, originally this was supposed to be Eddie Murphy, and he would have been in here a lot sooner, but because he passed, they ended up making the role a bit smaller and giving it to Ernie Hudson. I love that he's an everyday man, just looking for a job, doesn't give a shit about these ghosts. He's just got to pay his rent, so he's here. And if they'll pay him, he'll do it. By the way, I won these out of a claw machine, out of a Walmart in Alabama. So I couldn't get Slimer. He was too round. He wouldn't get in the pinchers. But these guys, fun fact, I'm really good at claw machines. And I hear that in Las Vegas, there are giant claw machines with like giant prizes. I don't know what, a car? I don't know. But I feel like I should go and try my luck because I'm obviously a master. This movie also has a super iconic theme song by Ray Parker Jr. Something was going on in the 80s where everybody had to have like some hip-hop rap theme song for their like comedy movie. I don't know. I don't know if it started with Ghostbusters. It certainly didn't end with them though. But I love the lyrics. Like if you listen to the lyrics, they're just like totally ridiculous. Like, you've had a dose of a freaky ghost, so who you gonna call? And apparently the guy was having a hard time writing this. He was like, I don't fucking know what to do for this thing. And in the middle of the night, he was watching TV and he saw an ad for a plumber and it said, who are you gonna call? And that's where he got the idea. And the song ended up being #1 for 3 weeks on the charts, on the top 100, all right? Like, this shit was hot. So just imagine, it's 1984, you're driving around in your car, you turn on your radio, and there you got the Ghostbusters theme song, jamming, pumping out. It's totally awesome. Driving down the fucking road. I want to sum up this whole thing by stating that bustin' makes me feel good. It's an actual lyric. It might be a double entendre, I don't know, but certainly questionable. Bustin' does, in fact, make you feel good. Never were truer words ever said. And as with making any movie, the people who make these movies, they have no idea whether this is going to be a hit or not, and they have no idea whether it's going to come together or not. But it's things like this where he does his turn, you know, like he just got a date with Dana. Some movies just have this soulful quality about them where they have like this own personality, where all these people who've been working on this film and putting it together, they end up making something greater than themselves. And you can't plan for that. It just happens, you know? And this is one of those deals where it's like this movie has such a personality, such a soulfulness to it, and pulling it off just flawlessly. It's lightning in a bottle. It's like the stars were in line or something when they made this movie, because everything just gels. Now, so far in the movie, everything's been going great for the Ghostbusters, but just like in life, things can't go great forever, and you have to have some sort of obstacle in your path. And the EPA is it in this movie. You have character Walter Peck, who comes in, who wants to see their containment unit because he feels like it could be a threat to the environment because these guys are completely unregulated and nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. And it's so funny, this actor did such a great job at this role, being such a prick, just being such a little asshole, that he said that it ruined his life because people started being mean to him, like speaking to him like he's an asshole all the time, and that he got into several bar fights like over this character, which is just such a testament to how great his portrayal of him is. I mean, it's kind of like Joffrey, you know, where it's like, God, you just hate him, you know, and if you saw him in real life, you'd still kind of hate him even though he's not that person. And just like in real life, anytime you dabble in the occult and weird supernatural things, you're gonna have people who are gonna come out of the woodwork gunning for you because they can't stand the thought of there being something that's unexplained in their reality, you know, like freaks them the fuck out. So that's why you got this guy coming in, because he's like, I do not accept the fact that there are ghosts. Like, fuck you. You're offending me with that bullshit, so I'm gonna shut you down. And things may have not gone as badly with him if he hadn't have met Bill Murray's characters right off the bat, because, like, they're totally obviously just rub each other the wrong way. I mean, Bill Murray, when he first meets him, handshakes him with slime and then wipes the rest of the slime off on his shoulder, which would definitely not make you any friends, like that sort of behavior. They're like oil and vinegar. They're just not gonna mix, you know? They're just natural enemies. One of the reasons that I really fell in love with this movie when I was a girl was, you know, growing up, I was always attracted to anything that was weird, supernatural, occult, like monsters, whatever, like anything that was supernatural, I was there and I was excited and I wanted to learn about it. I was super into spiritual things, and I appreciated this movie because it showed other people who have these interests, but that they're just people, you know, because, you know, I'm from the South and you kind of get demonized a bit, where if you even talk about occult subjects or if people see you studying these things, it's really a taboo. And like, this movie was like, there are other people out there who have these interests and they're normal people just like me. It's like, it's totally fine. You can have these interests and you know shit that other people don't. And I just found it really inspiring that these people put themselves out there and are like, no, there are ghosts and we're gonna fucking deal with it. I don't care what any of you think, you know, because they're always getting shit on by everyone and people calling them like fakes and frauds and saying that they're the ones who are causing all the ghosts in the first place. And, you know, they just deal with it and roll and move on and do their own thing.
We could be on the verge of a fourfold cross rip, a PKE surge of incredible, even dangerous proportions.
I think it's a good time to bring up Dan Aykroyd and where he got his inspiration for this movie. Apparently, his family has long been into the supernatural. He has a family tradition of holding seances in his house and things like that. Really interesting stuff. He's a true believer in the paranormal and the supernatural. He's even been on Coast to Coast and things like that, talking about UFOs and all sorts of cool stuff.
The whole family was sort of steeped in this kind of just accepted fact that spirits do exist and can you communicate if you find a talented medium, him or her, who is willing to give themselves up to the controls. And the controls are the entities from the other side that come through. And so that, combined with an article in the ASPR Journal about quantum physics and parapsychology, and my love of old ghost movies from the 30s and 40s, Bob Hope, Abbott and Costello, the Bowery Boys, that's sort of, married together to produce the first draft of Ghostbusters.
So, I mean, he really has a respect for this material, and I think that really shows in this movie. And it's so, like, practical the way they talk about these things. And they don't think it's silly at all. You can tell that he really does have a love and respect for the paranormal.
I think all I got is acetylsalicylic acid, generic. See, I can get 600 tablets of that for the same price as 300 of a name brand. That makes good financial sense. Good advice. Hey, this is real smoked salmon from Nova Scotia, Canada. $24.95 a pound. It only cost me $14.12 after tax, though. I'm giving this whole thing as a promotional expense. That's why I invited clients instead of friends. You having a good time, Mark? How you doing? Why don't you have some of the brie? It's at room temperature. You think it's too warm in here for the brie?
So in this scene, we have Rick Moranis' character of Lewis throwing a party for all of his clients that he can write off on his taxes. And I think it's really important to note that this is one continuous shot, and Rick Moranis like ad-libbed like all this shit that he's saying, like, which is like hilarious if you're listening to it, talking about like how much he bought the salmon for and why he's throwing a party for clients and not friends and things like that. And it's like, that like he's throwing a party for clients because he doesn't really have any friends. But anyways, and then Jean Kasem makes her debut here. If you didn't know, she's currently has her husband Casey Kasem's body and has taken it to another country so that it cannot have an autopsy, so she can't be busted for elder abuse. So that's a fun fact. Really fantastic creature design with the terror dogs. They're so much fun. As I was talking about New York texture earlier, in this scene, you have Peter Venkman arriving after the terror dog has already hit the scene and is out of the building. And he's like, what's going on? And this guy's like, some idiot brought a cougar to a party and it went berserk. It's like, it's such a New York fucking thing, like. In this scene, Venkman shows up for his date with Dana, but she's already been possessed and is now the gatekeeper. And this all leads to the famous levitation trick where she's above the covers and she's levitating and then she turns and does a 180-degree turn. And that was also all done practically. It was like this, I don't even know how they did it, but it is not an optical effect at all. They did it in camera right there, and it looks perfect. It looks like she's levitating to me, so I'll take it. Apparently, she's in some sort of body cast that has like a bar that like goes into the curtains that you can't see. But then when they do this, I don't exactly know how they do this, but that's what's so great about it. It's like, I don't know, and I love it. That's real movie magic right there. In this scene, we have the return of Walter Peck from the EPA with some piping hot bureaucracy set to just fuck their shit up, because they're like, it's like the antithesis of the Ghostbusters, they're all about weird shit and spirituality and like no rules and just making it up as they go. And then you got this guy who's like grounded in reality and everything's got a place and you gotta have a form and a fucking permit and all this shit. It's like they're just so perfectly at odds. And the scene has such good tension in it. He's trying to get him to shut off this grid, and Egon's like, if you shut that grid down, this whole thing is gonna blow. And then this guy over here doesn't know what to do. He's like, should I turn it off? I don't know, I don't wanna blow up. It's a really great scene. And Bill Murray, this is like the only time in the film where he's playing it completely straight. So, it just lends so much like weight to this scene. Like, it's like, whoa, like Venkman's not even making jokes. Like, you can't shut that fucking thing off. I think it's really smart writing because this event kicks off the third act where, they're saying, wait for the sign and that'll be the big thing that happens that will let you know that Gozer is coming. And this is that sign. Like, this guy the universe has put this guy in place to fuck these guys up, to deliver this sign so that Gozer can come through. It's just a really great way to mix the mundane, like this EPA guy trying to get him to shut him down or something, with the supernatural. Like this guy unwittingly starts a supernatural event. Another thing that's great is a small moment between these two where you have Peck finally pissing off the brain guy. Like Egon's like, "Ah!" Like even he makes him so mad. You know, the guy who like never has an emotional reaction about anything. But this shot is so great. This is like one of my favorite shots in the movie, where you have these like really cool spirits like being animated, like coming out of their building after this explosion, and they're just being unleashed upon the city. It's just so beautifully animated. I love the idea that they had of how to illustrate that concept. And then when the soundtrack cuts in too, where you have that really good song, it's just like has this feeling of like, oh shit, you know, we're getting ready to get into it. Like, I mean, then you have this fucking guy showing up. Look at this fucking guy. He's great. Like, I love the evil taxi fucking dude. It's like so cute. The ghost cabbie. Got Slimer eating all this dude's wieners, eating all that street meat. In this scene, we finally find out what's been going on, and the whole deal goes back to Dana Barrett's building, which was built by an occultist named Ivo Shandor, and he made it into like this spiritual funnel that'll like take the energy and like concentrate it and bring it down and like manifest it in our own reality. And I think it's really interesting, like, that's such a brilliant idea and so interesting. And you think to yourself, like, you kind of wish you knew more about the architect. And originally, he was supposed to show up. Gozer was supposed to take the form of the architect, but that obviously didn't end up happening in the final draft. But yeah, I love the idea of a building that was built not to house people, but to bring back ancient deities. Fun fact, this movie popularized the term ectoplasm, which is a real term that was used to describe this etheric substance like that would happen on our physical plane from like spiritual things, like mediums and stuff would sometimes have these ectoplasmic things. And you should definitely check out these photos of what is supposed to be ectoplasm. They're super creepy and really weird. I don't know if they're bullshit or not, but I like to think that it's totally real and super weird. I want to believe. Another occult idea that I enjoy that they used was the idea of sex magic. You have these two characters, the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, and these two humans have to mate, and that sexual energy somehow charges this altar, which will bring forth, will birth this godlike entity. It's a really interesting concept. No, I want to live here. I want to live here.
Gozer the Gozerian? Good evening.
And here we have Gozer the Gozerian. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how much I love this character design. She is so hot. I love her weird bubble outfit. I love her flat top. I love her makeup. I like that she has like little heels on. It's so awesome, and I don't know why I haven't cosplayed as this already in my life. I feel kind of like I'm slacking because I haven't done this. It's so obvious. What's my problem? This is a very important matter to me. I was reading online, somebody just found that costume at an old shop that had all this like shit from movies that they were selling, just like stuffed in the bargain bin, and like they knew what it was, and they were like bought it immediately and were just like, didn't tell the person. It's like, oh, did you know this is the original costume from Ghostbusters? No, they just took that fucker home. That's what I would do. This movie also has really great advice for you. If somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes. I've been waiting to use that bit of advice for a while now. I'm sure it'll come up.
Choose the form of the Destructor.
In this scene, Rey has accidentally chosen the form of the Destroyer. This is one of the best reveals ever, where you finally see the giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So iconic. I can't even tell you how much I loved Stay Puft when I was a kid. I really wanted a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man doll, and I never got one, and I was always bitter about it. Like, that's fine, I've got Egon. I don't need Stay Puft. I do need Stay Puft, I'm lying. But Yes, this I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's just too perfect that they decided to go with such a ridiculous fucking character. Another thing about Mr. Stay Puft that's so delightful is all of his wonderful expressions. I love that he starts off really happy, a little happy face, and then you see him and he's like really pissed that he's on fire, and he's just like, ah, like he's the cutest mean face of all time. And then when they finally get him in the end, he looks really pissed, and it's like he goes from cute pissed to super pissed. And that's kind of like my moods. I feel a real strong connection with Stay Puft. The idea of crossing the streams is also really brilliant writing, where you bring it up earlier in the film and they're like, don't ever cross the streams, you know, and then they have to do the one thing that they were told that they're never supposed to do earlier on. It's just, fun fact, all this is just shaving cream. And this, from what I read, he didn't know that was gonna happen, and then that just happened, and it was like such a heavy force, like it hit him like really hard. It apparently was like not fun to have that much shit dumped on you, but that's a really honest reaction in the end, where he's just like, no, because he just had no clue. Can you imagine as an actor having that shit pulled on you? I read about that all the time, where directors do crazy shit to like scare their actors to get like a real reaction out of them. Well, that's what they were saying. Well, another thing, a different account that I read was that he knew about it and he asked them ahead of time. They were like, well, how much is it? And he's like, it's 75 pounds, but it's fine. It's just whipped cream. And he's like, 70 pounds of whipped cream or 75 pounds of lead, it's still 75 fucking pounds. Like, it's still gonna hurt, you know? There's conflicting reports. I don't know. He may have known, he may have not known. I guess we'll never know. Either way, it was worth the shot. Now, on a more somber note, we lost a Ghostbuster recently. Harold Ramis passed away. Egon, you're one of my biggest crushes. You'll forever be missed.
I love this town!
Now, for years, I've been hearing a lot of rumors about a Ghostbusters 3. There's been a lot of stuff going on about it. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. That's my thing, you know. I know that Max Landis had a treatment that was really interesting. So, yes, there's a lot of speculation as to what could happen. And while part of me would love to see a new Ghostbusters movie that recaptures this magic, I feel like it kind of is uncapturable. Like, I don't know if they'll ever be able to capture this magic ever again. And if they can't, then I don't want to see another movie, you know? I know that Bill Murray, like, they were in talks for a long time to do a third one with him, and he kept saying that he didn't want to do one because he did not like how the second one came out, was really upset with how that was, and felt that it kind of tarnished the original and didn't want anything to do with any more of the movies, which is unfortunate. And I know a lot of people shit on the second one, and they say, you know, and I get it, okay, it's very much like a copy-paste of the first one in a lot of ways. It hits the same beats and it does the same things. I get that. But I still loved it when I was a kid, and I know that it's a flawed film. They could have done so much more with it. They missed an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, when I was a little girl, I was just really excited to see my friends again. So that's it for our retro review of Ghostbusters. I hope you had a good time. Don't forget that August 29th, for a week only, there will be Ghostbusters in theaters again. So go check it out. Like I said, I've never seen it on the big screen, so I will definitely be there. I gotta get my tickets.